Someone asked. My ex-boyfriend is successful now. If I want him back, does that make me the other woman? She said they were each other's first love. She said the breakup wasn't her choice. Then she posted a photo. I recognized the ring on his hand immediately. I designed it myself. That day, his friend asked me, if you love someone, shouldn't you accept their past? I said, I can accept that he has a past. I just can't accept that his past is still present. Chapter 1. After we set a wedding date, I started sharing my wedding preparations on social media. The comments were always polite and friendly. Some people warned me about which hotels to avoid in the city, others recommended bridal boutiques they loved. Then I posted a photo of the matching rings Chad and I wore, with the caption, I designed them myself. They're not expensive, but they mean a lot. 30 seconds later, the first comment appeared. She didn't do anything wrong. She just hasn't learned how to let go yet. That was strange. I replied with a single question mark. She responded again, sometimes showing off your happiness hurts other people. Have you ever thought about how his ex-girlfriend would feel seeing this? I frowned slightly and clicked on her profile. It was a record of a relationship that felt both brief and endless. The account had been created 3 months ago, documenting memories that began when she was 17. I opened her latest post. My ex-boyfriend is successful now. If I want him back, does that make me the other woman? The comments were intense, vicious even, and her ex-boyfriend felt disturbingly familiar. So you're not the other woman, I am? Social media has officially lost its mind. I'm logging off. She's really trying to build a whole account off this mess. Who is this even for? What do you mean of circumstances beyond your control? Was your ex a nobody back then? If this doesn't count as being the other woman, then what does? Are we redefining the word now? Sometimes I wonder why I keep seeing posts like this. What did I do to deserve seeing this? I put my phone away, wrapped myself in my coat, and changed my destination from home to the restaurant where Chad was having dinner. It was one of Chad's rare days off. He had told me he was meeting some high school friends and wouldn't be able to come see my performance. By 10 o'clock, the place was nearly empty. Only 2 private rooms were still occupied, laughter spilling out from inside. Chad really made it in the end. He studied way longer than the rest of us. From this point on, he'd be juggling both clinical work and research. Making associate chief would be a major milestone. He works at a top-tier hospital, widely recognized for its standing. The professional network alone is invaluable. Oh, by the way, when are you getting married? The conversation inside the room stopped abruptly. I held my breath. You're really getting married? Someone asked. Yes. Chad paused briefly before answering in a low voice. To that dancer girl from before, right? I thought it was just a dancer? A girl's voice cut in, sharp and unpleasant. I remember you always said you hated people who don't take their careers seriously and only look for shortcuts. I leaned quietly against the wall, my heart pounding so hard my fingertips started to go numb. Chad would defend me, right? Dancing isn't avoiding real work, and there are no shortcuts in it. Everything I had achieved came from exhausting every ounce of my talent and effort. At least that's better than someone who quit halfway. His tone was strange, edged with resentment. I couldn't tell who it was meant for. But I knew it wasn't for me. Chad, if you're going to get married, then get married. Why say things like this just to provoke me? You know exactly what happened back then. The girl stopped herself, her voice trembling, on the verge of tears. You're not just trying to hurt me. You're actually getting married right in front of me. Chapter 2. Maybe the atmosphere in the private room had grown too awkward, because someone stood up and said they were going to the restroom. I quickly went to the sink as well, pretending to fix my makeup. The ones who came out were Chad's 2 closest high school friends. They didn't seem to recognize me. That made sense. I had only met them once before. It was before Chad took me to meet his parents, when he formally introduced me to his friends. Besides, my stage makeup was heavier than usual today, so it wasn't strange that they didn't recognize me. The two of them lit cigarettes nearby and started chatting. So what's Chloe trying to do? Does she really want to get back together with Chad? Isn't it obvious? Man, I'm going to say something, but don't tell anyone. He deliberately lowered his voice and glanced toward the private room like a thief. Do you remember a few days before Chad brought that girl Anna, or whatever, to meet us? He asked me out for drinks, and you know he barely drinks after going into medicine. That night, Chad really drank a lot. He said he wanted to go find Chloe and marry her. I suddenly remembered that day he had mentioned, when Chad stood downstairs at my place, reeking of alcohol, holding a small duck-shaped hair clip that must have been dropped by some kid in the neighborhood. I didn't know how long he had spent in the snow clipping duck after duck until they covered the ground. When I got his call and went downstairs, his hands were frozen red. I wrapped my scarf around him, feeling sorry for him but pretending to be annoyed as I asked why he had been drinking. He looked at me with reddened eyes and said, "Because I'm happy. Because I'm going to meet your parents." I froze, and all the scolding words I had prepared got stuck in my throat. He leaned in close, warm breath brushing my ear, and said foolishly, "Anna, I'll treat you well. I love you more than anything in this life. I will love you." From the day I met Chad, he had always been rational, restrained, and steady. From the time we got together until now, I had never heard him confess his love so directly. Because of those words, I tossed and turned in bed all night, too excited to fall asleep. Even though his words were full of holes. What did he mean by, "I'll love you in the future"? Looking back now, it turns out that the love he had at the time simply couldn't be taken out into the open. That sudden show of affection was nothing more than guilt. At the dance company, I had heard countless stories about betrayal and being betrayed. Some were furious, some were incredulous. But when it actually happened to me, I realized that the moment you learn the truth, you can't even cry. The sounds around me gradually faded away, like the dizzy low blood sugar feeling after dancing for too long. Why was it like this? Why couldn't Chad clear out his heart completely before starting a new relationship? Then why is he still marrying his girlfriend? The conversation between the two of them continued. Are you stupid? At this age, of course it's because she's suitable. Suitable? Suitability matters more than love. Chloe has a temper and needs Chad to coax her. Think about it, does Chad's job leave him with any emotional energy to spare? If they didn't argue and end up divorced, that would be strange. No, what do you mean suitability matters more than love? I think Chad studied himself stupid. If he doesn't love her, why marry her? It's not that he doesn't love her, it's just that first love is always the hardest to forget. If it's unforgettable, then go back to your first love. Why drag another girl into it? Man, this kind of thing isn't ours to interfere with, people always push reconciliation, never separation. The two of them went back to the private room, still talking animatedly, leaving me there washing my hands over and over again. I stared at myself in the mirror, thinking how good I looked today. Huh? Why was my face wet? Chapter 3. I wandered into a convenience store in a daze and sat down wherever there was an empty seat. Then I clicked on that girl's profile, where the few posts she had carefully documented 7 years of their relationship, every touching moment preserved in detail. The account had never gained much attention until the most recent post. I kept scrolling and saw a high school graduation photo. Only 2 faces were clearly visible in the picture. One was Chad, and the other was the girl called Chloe. They became a couple on the day they graduated from high school. To give her the best life he could afford, Chad started working part-time during school breaks while he was still in high school. He bought her bedding, clothes, shoes, even underwear. He would transfer money to her from time to time, afraid she might run out. He hated seeing her eat cheap takeout and worried when she didn't sleep well or cover herself properly at night. In the middle of his packed schedule, he would secretly travel to her city and wait outside her school to hand her a hot drink the moment she finished class. No matter the wind or the rain, Chad rode back and forth between the hospital and the university. All so that, when Chloe graduated, he could give her an expensive necklace. Everyone thought they would go from school uniforms to wedding attire, standing side by side through each other's futures. But less than half a month after Chloe graduated, Chad received news that she was going abroad to study. No one walks away easily from a sudden, cliff-edge breakup. Chad didn't either. I always believed that no matter how much regret or unwillingness someone carried from a past relationship, once they chose to be with someone new, they had let go. I was wrong. Chad had simply locked those memories away. Until 3 months ago, when Chloe returned home and reopened that door. Chad had never changed his phone number, and Chloe tried sending him a message. Chad, I just passed by our high school gate and fell in the same spot again, it hurts so much. The message sank without a trace. Unwilling to give up, she sent another one. I even tore my clothes, do you think I might have broken a bone, should I see a doctor? Still no response. If you don't reply, I'll just sit here and wait until you do. 3 minutes later, she finally received a reply. Go. From that day on, their contact gradually became more frequent. Chad, I'm heading to work now. Going into surgery, don't text. Okay. Chad, have you eaten yet? I'm starving, recommend somewhere good nearby. No idea. Yuri, so cold I'll just starve to death then. Some noodle place. I was late for my interview again today, jet lag is still killing me after being abroad for so long. Okay. I'm really angry now. Even you think I'm annoying. That's not what I meant. Sometimes Chad didn't reply at all, and sometimes his replies were painfully brief. But I knew better than anyone that someone as smart as Chad wouldn't forget how to block a number. How could he not understand what it meant for Chloe to come back and look for him? Unless he was deliberately allowing it. Unless he was indulging in it himself. I stared at the convenience store food in front of me, long cold and untouched, lost in thought. 3 years of memories rushed back like a tide. Had Chad never loved me? Yet he had written me into the acknowledgments of his doctoral dissertation. Some people see the stars, some see the dust, but looking back at every heartbeat over these years, you still came out on top. After overnight shifts, he crossed half the city to pick me up at the airport, and on his most precious days off, he accompanied me to dance rehearsals. He formally introduced me to every elder in his family and brought me to meet his closest friends. When I cried uncontrollably, he would smile and hold me, and when I was quiet and withdrawn, he would comfort me gently and stay by my side as much as he could. And yet this man, while being with me, had someone else living in his heart the entire time. Love may have existed in a moment, real and pure. But only for a moment. The sweetness of the past 3 years was only one half of him. Somewhere I couldn't see, the other half had been pieced together bit by bit. The convenience store door opened and closed again. The cold wind rushing in made my mind clearer. As I was deciding whether I should storm in and slap him before demanding answers, or slap him twice and say nothing at all, my phone suddenly vibrated. A friend isn't feeling well and needs to go to the hospital, so I can't pick you up tonight. Call me when you get home. 3 minutes later, I watched him walk out of that place, supporting a girl who could barely stand. In that instant, my feelings for him seemed to vanish completely. As their car disappeared into the distance, I walked down the steps one by one. In a blur, an electric scooter lost control and crashed straight toward me, and before I could dodge, I hit the ground hard. My mother always says that when you're unlucky, even drinking water can choke you. That was exactly me. Chapter 4. I was lying on a bed in the emergency room while the doctor had just finished changing my dressings. A nurse who looked familiar couldn't help asking, "Are you Chad's girlfriend? I think I've seen you before." I suddenly remembered the time when I had just started pursuing Chad, constantly coming to the hospital to bring him food whenever I could. I even shared it with his coworkers, hoping they would look after Chad, who had only just started working. I smiled at her without saying anything. Was I still his girlfriend? Probably not anymore. She adjusted the drip rate and said, "What bad timing." Chad isn't on duty today, and he's been sick and injured lately. Just thinking about it makes my heart ache. By the way, is he coming by later? He's not. She froze for a moment, then nodded in understanding. Right. Chad is always so busy. Having such a considerate girlfriend like you really isn't easy. Someone called her from outside, and she responded quickly, reminding me as she left, Anna, just call if you need anything. I nodded. My phone vibrated, and a new private message popped up on social media. Quiet happiness doesn't get stolen. I'm just teaching you how the world works, sis. When I opened her newly posted video, that familiar figure was standing in the kitchen, busy with something, warm yellow light falling across his back. Chad, I don't feel well. Who told you to drink that much? Obviously you. I forced you to drink? Hearing about you made me feel awful. How does that not count as you making me drink? You're not a child anymore. How can you still not even take care of yourself? Chad, are you worried about me? Chad kept his back to the living room the entire time, completely unaware that he was being recorded. There was not a trace of impatience in his voice, only a tenderness and helplessness he didn't even realize himself. I closed my eyes, exhausted. Tell me, why is it that people can't just refuse when they no longer like someone? Why do they start a new relationship when there's still someone else in their heart? And why, after starting over, do they still cling to another person? When he looked at me with such affection, who was he really thinking about? The next morning, Chad came by during shift change rounds. Wearing his white coat, he looked drained as he followed the doctor from the night before. So had they spent the entire night reminiscing about their youthful love, or regretting all the years they failed to be there for each other? Chad, I heard from Ling that this is your girlfriend. I thought you'd come check on her last night. What girlfriend? Chad suddenly looked up. The moment he saw me, the panic in his eyes was impossible to hide. Only then did Chad realize that I hadn't replied to his messages at all the night before. And since he had lied about going back to the hospital and never returned home, he naturally assumed I went home after my performance. Anna, how did you? Your girlfriend has a head injury and hurt her knee as well. She also had a fever when she was brought in, so we kept her overnight for observation. The doctor glanced at him strangely. She is your girlfriend, right? You seem to know nothing about this. Yes, I said, lifting my head and answering for Chad thoughtfully. We were even planning to get married. Not anymore. Without another word, Chad walked to my bedside to check my injuries, his movements stiff. Why didn't you tell me you were hurt? You went back to the hospital in the middle of the night. You must have had something urgent. I didn't want to bother you. Anna, let me explain when we get home. I looked at him calmly and said, explain what? Explain how you said you went to the hospital but never came home? Everyone drank too much last night and crashed at old Zhang's place. I didn't want to scare you by coming back late. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Old Zhang must use a really nice body wash. You don't smell like alcohol at all. Once someone tells a lie, they need countless more to cover it up. Watching him hurry out of the ward, I closed my eyes, exhausted. Love and the absence of it appeared in my mind at the same time. It felt disjointed. Chad was handsome, well-mannered, and serious about his work. Even my picky mother couldn't help praising him. Falling for him had been effortless. But how hard is it to let go of love that began at 18, that I could no longer continue this relationship? The man who once cared for me in every possible way had left space in his heart for someone else. He was standing so close to me, yet it felt as though he was no longer the same person at all. Chapter 5. Chad walked in carrying a large bouquet of flowers and a cake. The moment he saw me, a flicker of unease crossed his face. It disappeared almost instantly. Didn't we agree you'd wait for me to get off work? Why did you come back first? I glanced at the flowers in his hands and said nothing. Holding the bouquet, Chad walked toward me, his smile familiar and gentle. Congratulations to our Anna for successfully performing a new role again. He squatted down in front of me with concern, looking at the scrape on my knee. I was going to take you out to celebrate properly, but now I'll just cook a few of your favorite dishes at home. I stayed silent for a moment, then suddenly looked up at him. No need. I feel sick. Chad froze slightly, worry flashing across his eyes. What's wrong? Didn't they say there was no problem with your head? Why would you feel sick? Tell me what kind of sick. Why did I feel sick? Probably because I had just seen Chloe's new post, and in the photo was the ballet dress Chad had bought specifically for me. The caption read, "I've had a ballet dream since I was little, so I finally got a ballet dress. Too bad I can't dance, so I'll just admire it." Before my performance today, one of the girls from the dance company had even told me that Chad had recently gone out of his way to ask her which ballet dress suited me best. It must have taken quite a bit of effort to find that one. Unfortunately, that effort didn't seem to be meant for me in the end. I lowered my eyes, finding it almost laughable. Are you still upset about last night? He suddenly seemed to realize it, standing up with visible irritation. Anna, didn't we agree that no matter what happens, we should tell each other right away instead of making the other guess? You got hurt and didn't call me, and now you're blaming me for not knowing. Chad stood there, disappointment filling his eyes. As if I were the one who had done something wrong. The flowers placed casually at my feet suddenly toppled over, petals scattering across the floor. I remember that after we got together, I never once received flowers from you. You said they were the laziest, least thoughtful kind of gift. Let alone flowers that clearly look like someone else already picked through them. Half the petals were creased, the other half already fallen. Chad froze in place. And that cake too. The shop owner had just posted online that it was the last one left. You didn't just grab it on the way here, did you? The living room fell completely silent. 5 seconds later, Chad finally spoke, a trace of irritation in his voice. Anna, I think you understand that my job means I probably won't have much energy left for you in the future. I can't provide emotional reassurance around the clock, and I can't read your mind every time. If you keep pushing this, then maybe we need to reassess this relationship. He let out a soft sigh, as if I had backed him into a corner. I glanced at him, then went back to the bedroom and started packing my clothes. Anna, you. Chad clearly hadn't expected me to respond so decisively with action to what sounded like a warning. His face darkened, his tone turning sharp. What are you trying to say? Is this because I had dinner with friends? Because I didn't guess you were hospitalized? Or because you didn't like the gifts I prepared today? I had always known that blaming arguments on a woman being unreasonable was a common male reflex. I had thought Chad would be an exception. Maybe because of his profession, he always seemed emotionally steady when dealing with things. Turns out he was no different. Once his tail was stepped on, how could he not lash out? Are you apologizing right now, or are you listing everything you think I did wrong? I turned back to look at him, easily catching the flash of panic in his eyes. Chad, I may look careless and less clever than you. But I'm not so stupid that I can't tell right from wrong, and I won't punish myself for someone else's mistakes. What do you mean? Only then did he realize I wasn't joking. Chad, I'll ask you one last time. Last night, did you really go to old Zhang's place? Anna. Answer me. At that moment, I was completely calm. Did you go, or did you not? Bang, the only response was the sound of Chad slamming the door as he left. I stood there, completely still. This was the man I had truly loved. The man who once made me feel like he was another version of myself. A light in my life. But I had forgotten that light always casts a shadow. As I closed the bedroom door, tears fell silently. I was so sad. Sad for the girl who had loved without holding anything back, and who never got the ending she deserved. She had done nothing wrong. Chapter 6. This was the third day after Anna left, and Chad was sitting in the on-call room. In a daze, he thought he heard someone calling him. Doctor, my leg is really important to me, you. My what? Anna looked up at him with reddened eyes and said blankly, "You're really good looking. I'm not your doctor. Please wait a moment." Back then, he was still a student who hadn't graduated yet, following his attending physician during clinic hours. It's okay. I can wait while looking at you." At the time, Chad was thinking that he had seen shameless girls before, but never one this shameless. Even though that shameless face was very pretty. From that day on, it was as if Anna had installed a tracking device on him, because every follow-up visit somehow landed exactly on his schedule. "Chad, we meet again. I think you look especially like." "Like what?" "Like my future." Anna looked up at him, her face full of open, unguarded smiles. Chad's face suddenly grew warm, and he awkwardly looked away. "If there's nothing physically wrong with you." "I do have something wrong." "What is it?" "It's that you never reply to my messages and you're always so cold to me. That makes my heart uncomfortable." After that, they stayed in touch more and more often, even though her injury had mostly healed and she only had 1 or 2 small issues to mention each day. She was very smart, always saying just a line or two before obediently disappearing. But when Chad happened to be in the mood to talk, she could read the room and stay with him for a while. He still remembered one time after being threatened by a patient, when despite all his mental preparation, he still found himself doubting the path he had chosen. "Chad, are you unhappy? Why are you unhappy? Do you want milk tea? Or cake? There's a hot pot place near your hospital that's really good." "Anna, what are you actually trying to say?" "Huh? I'm cheering you up. My favorite person is you, Chad." Chad looked at her face, tugged lightly at the corner of his mouth, and said softly, "What's there to like about me?" With just that one sentence, the girl in front of him suddenly lit up and began listing everything enthusiastically. "You're smart, you're good-looking, you heal people and save lives. Once you graduate, you'll be incredible on the dating market. These sharp, bright eyes of mine have never been wrong. Why don't you try being with me and see just how much I like you?" Later, they really did get together. Anna was like a little sun, full of new energy every day. "Chad got scolded again? Looks like you improved again. Every time I get scolded by my teacher, the move I couldn't get suddenly clicks. Look at me, what part of me hasn't been criticized?" She would show up with late-night snacks, makeup still on, looking at him pitifully and saying, "Please help me eat this. I really can't control myself." She would also suddenly show up at the office carrying bags of fruit, greeting the nurses sweetly and asking them to take good care of Chad. Chad knew she didn't really understand much. She just thought that maybe, this way, he wouldn't have to struggle so hard. Anna accompanied Chad through the most barren period of his life, and being with her never felt painful. So why, on that day, did he choose to lie to her without hesitation? Chad rubbed his temples and gave himself a perfectly reasonable explanation. Less trouble was better than more. He had nothing to do with Chloe anymore, and besides, he was about to get married. There was no need for Anna to know too much. Once she cooled down and came back in a few days, he would just coax her properly again. Chapter 7. On the 5th day of my Cold War with Chad, he invited his 2 closest friends out for dinner. By the time Chloe arrived, they had already drunk quite a bit. As for how I knew all this, I had Chloe's half-threatening, half-provocative post to thank. If his current relationship is making him this miserable, then I'm willing to be the other woman everyone keeps talking about. In the video, Chad opened another bottle under the half-hearted attempts of the 2 men to stop him. The comment section was completely confused. Don't doctors have workdays anymore? How does he dare drink? Meanwhile, I feel like my soul is being drained every single day. This guy looks like my senior. Didn't I hear he's getting married though? Or am I misremembering? Welp. Guess this isn't bait, this is actually happening. This is awful. If I report it, the girl being cheated on might not see it. If I don't, I'll be so angry I'll explode. I don't know who the target audience for posts like this is, but I know for sure I'm part of the victim group. By the time Chloe realized the post had sparked massive debate and people had even started digging into Chad's identity, it was already too late. A post she had meant only for me had been pushed by sudden traffic straight into the public eye. Deleting it now wouldn't help. Discussions about love and its absence. About exes and current partners. Even conversations involving doctors as a group had begun to ferment in the comments of her other posts. Through those threads, people were already on the verge of identifying both her and Chad. In a panic, she chose to rewrite the story. In this version, I became the other woman. The other woman who had inserted herself between her and Chad during their long-distance relationship after she went abroad. She deleted all her previous posts, leaving only a reply under the earlier video. If you don't know the truth, please don't hurt anyone. You can scold me, but I won't change my choice. Even if it isn't me in the end, it still can't be that scheming girl. Chloe claimed that neither she nor Chad had ever mentioned breaking up. Their long-distance relationship, which had survived countless hardships, was supposedly sabotaged by me taking advantage of a single argument. She emphasized repeatedly that I had relentlessly pursued Chad, even waiting for him at the hospital every single day. Everyone knows why luxury cars are always parked outside dance academies. I don't need to spell out how many tricks those girls have. Being young and pretty is her capital, but it doesn't give her the right to ruin someone else's relationship. She added with apparent regret, I even heard from friends that she got into the dance academy through connections. Who knows which promising girl got pushed out because of her. Chloe spoke as if she were chasing trending topics, hitting every public nerve with perfect precision. The comments exploded instantly. I have a dance student at home. I won't even start on how hard it is. I hope anyone with special privileges gets exposed. Thank you, OP. People always manage to discover elites hiding in posts like this. Even though this started as a third-party story. I wouldn't even give 1% credibility to this blogger. One moment it's an unavoidable breakup, the next it's a brief Cold War. Pure cognitive dissonance. Watch your wording. Cognitive dissonance requires having a brain. Clearly the blogger doesn't. If she's so confident, why doesn't she name names? Afraid of getting sued. Chloe seemed to disappear entirely, not replying to a single comment. But she underestimated the internet. In just 3 hours, all of my information had been exposed online. Some people even contacted my former school and the dance company I belonged to, demanding a thorough investigation into my admission credentials. They claimed that although unhealthy practices could never be completely eliminated, every case discovered had to be dealt with. You mean her? My former school responded succinctly. They released a video of that year's entrance exam standards on their official account, featuring footage of me from back then. Whose qualifications are you questioning? The dance company was briefly speechless. They uploaded a video of me winning a nationally recognized dance performance award on their official website. I was only 18 that year. The fire was extinguished before it could even spread. When people are speechless, they're really speechless. With proportions dance students dream of, you're telling me she cheated. Do you need me to explain the prestige of the Towley Cup to you? If someone at this level still needs connections, then this entire company must be full of gods. To be fair, it really is a gathering of elites, but she's clearly one of the best among them. Don't forget this blogger who spread the rumors. Don't let her get away. Only then did the fire around Chloe truly begin to burn. She rushed to explain, I never said she wasn't good at dancing. I was only questioning her character. Unfortunately, no one in the comments was listening anymore. UV said both the good and the bad yourself. Online slander really costs nothing these days, people are forced to prove themselves at the drop of a hat. Your ex studied all the way to a medical PhD, and you talk about him like he's an idiot. So he was forced into dating, and then forced into marriage too. I don't know if the guy was forced, but this blogger is definitely forcing me to want to slap her. Keep talking and the blogger's about to delete the post. Good thing I took screenshots. Just as predicted, the post disappeared the very next second. A few minutes later, the account showed as deactivated. Chapter 8. 2 days later, I posted screenshots on my profile that I had specifically organized with the help of a lawyer friend. My instinct told me to fight fire with fire. And to absolutely not let her off the hook. At the same time, the rational part of me sought legal assistance. She had to be held accountable for what she had done. In Chloe's earlier posts, the timeline of her relationship and breakup was laid out clearly. Included was the post where she asked whether trying to win Chad back made her a third party. These were things I had originally planned to throw in Chad's face, but they ended up becoming part of the evidence in my lawsuit against her for defamation. To highlight the key points, I placed the formal complaint as the first image. The views and shares had reached nearly 100,000, far exceeding the legal threshold for dissemination, and had even caused a serious decline in my public reputation. At the same time, I directly tagged Chloe's workplace. An expensive private school. She was still in her probation period. Wait, so she was planning a wedding and got cheated on? Oh my god, the person behind this account is actually my favorite dance student? I practiced for my entrance exams watching her videos. Do you know how insane this is? We caught her in real life. Fully support the OP defending her rights. This idiot was clearly trying to destroy your future. How is that any different from killing someone's parents? This just proves that girls can be betrayed no matter how outstanding they are. Exactly. Sometimes it really isn't that you're not good enough, so when relationships go wrong, question the other person more. Enough talk. Cyber police reporting for duty. Is this school choosing reputation or people? This is ridiculous. Using exam prep as a flex? For all you know, the original poster might actually be the one with a legitimate career path. Just as online opinion was beginning to ferment, Chad had already shown up at the dance company. In fact, my phone started buzzing non-stop the second I posted. I blocked his number, but he used someone else's. When Chad arrived, I was in rehearsal. I pretended not to see him, and even when I had no part on stage and was just standing off to the side, I gave him no chance to speak. I watched him scroll through his phone repeatedly, his brow tightening more and more. It wasn't until rehearsal was officially called off that his expression eased slightly. The moment I stepped off the stage, he rushed over to me and said in a low voice, "Anna, let's talk." About what? I stopped and looked at him calmly. About how you and your first love are planning a revival years after breaking up. Or about how she smeared me all over social media and then got sued by me. Anna. Chad unconsciously raised his voice. Don't believe every rumor you hear. There is absolutely nothing between her and me. Those messages, she has depression. I couldn't bring myself to be harsh. Hurry up and delete the post and drop the lawsuit. Do you know that what you're doing right now could destroy someone's entire life? I told you before, the thing I hate most is online harassment. So you allowed your first love to do the very thing you hate most to me, and then you tell me nothing ever happened between you and her? I let out a soft laugh. And even if we take 10,000 steps back, what does the thing you hate most have to do with me now? When two people break up, they should treat each other like they're dead. Who keeps talking about their ex's preferences? As for deleting posts and dropping the case, don't waste your breath. What Chad didn't know was that the day before yesterday, when I went back to the hospital for a follow-up, I happened to run into Chloe looking for him. She cried and confessed everything to Chad. I just couldn't let you go. I really didn't mean to. Chad's expression shifted from shock to anger as he demanded, "How much more do you want to torment me?" Chloe looked up at him, her face full of grievance. Didn't you say you cared about me the most when you confessed to me? How can you say such hurtful things now? In that moment, Chad fell silent. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe it was that most beautiful memory of youth on the school track, long ago. My original intention in posting was just to reminisce about our relationship. I never expected her to stab me right where it hurt most, deliberately posting about your wedding preparations. I was just angry. I never meant to hurt her. But she wants to destroy my entire life. Chad, you know what I'm like. I don't have bad intentions. Chad's expression shifted from anger to helplessness softened by emotion, and finally to understanding. As if she had found a breakthrough, Chloe gently tugged at his white coat. Chad, this hasn't affected her at all. It even boosted her visibility, just let her stop while she's ahead. The office was silent for a long time, so long that I almost believed Chad might stand on my side, even just a little. Okay. I heard him say. In that instant, he made all those years of open, unwavering devotion feel like a joke. Chapter 9. Anna, I never once thought about breaking up with you. Our wedding date was already set. Why won't you believe me? Even if we're just ordinary friends, out of basic decency I couldn't possibly ignore her when she needed help. I'm a doctor. Saving lives is my duty. Then why did you give her a ballet dress? I cut him off. Someone who can't even spell the word ballet correctly shouldn't be talking about a ballet dream. So Chad only needed to answer my question honestly. Because of a promise. He lowered his gaze, his hoarse voice echoing through the empty rehearsal hall. When we were together, we promised each other that if we didn't end up together, the one who got married first would grant the other one request. The gift Chad had prepared for me that day was that ballet dress. Not flowers or cake. It was only that night, when he was walking Chloe home, that she brought up the past under the influence of alcohol. And insisted on taking the dress. Anna, I didn't lie to you. I really just wanted to give that old relationship some closure. These days since you left, I've thought about everything. During the hardest years, you were the one encouraging me, supporting me through it all. I won't leave you, and I won't give you up. You've had unforgettable feelings too, haven't you? You should be able to understand me. I looked at him, my eyes inexplicably stinging. He was the first boy I ever liked, the first person I chose with absolute certainty. One day, I accidentally pushed open a door in his heart and discovered someone he deeply loved hidden inside. And then he asked me to understand him, to be considerate. I gathered my emotions and said calmly, Chad, you know that by conventional standards, you're considered an outstanding person. You naturally believe that I should understand you and forgive you. But I think the core of who you are is insecurity. You keep looking back because that first love, the one who once abandoned you, made your insecure self believe she's someone you'll never be worthy of. But when you chose to be with me, what was I supposed to do? Marry someone whose heart would always belong to someone else. Chad's face went deathly pale, making the redness in his eyes even more pronounced. I couldn't tell whether it was pain from recalling that unforgettable first love, or fear that his first love was about to be sued by me. I picked up the bag on the floor. Inside were printed records of every expense we had spent on each other over the years. Promises made in the heat of love, how could they still be valid so many years after a breakup? After all, when people break up, they can't wait to calculate every cent clearly. I laid all the printed records out. Fortunately, we owe each other nothing. Before leaving, I still reminded him of one thing. Even though you deliberately ignored this, I have to emphasize it again. She was the one who first tried to destroy my future. Destroying someone's future is no different from killing their parents. I would not let her off, no matter who came to plead. Anna. Chad's voice trembled slightly. When I came here, it was raining heavily outside. I remembered that not long after we first got together, I once had time to meet him for lunch. Just as I reached the stop, it suddenly started raining, and my phone had died. Afraid I wouldn't be able to find him, Chad stood at the agreed intersection waiting for me in the rain. I knew exactly why he was saying this. But was it heavier than the rain the night you waited downstairs at Chloe's place, the day she left the country? Chad froze on the spot. I thought that sentence was probably a fatal blow. When my mother got home, I was sitting in front of the computer, numbly deleting the photo albums. Every picture was a memory of Chad and me. She gently patted my head and said softly, "Don't be reluctant. You knew all along that he couldn't let go of his past. If you insist on staying with him, you'll spend every day worrying about whether he loves someone else more, living in constant fear like that. A healthy relationship lets you sleep peacefully every night, not wake up suddenly questioning whether you're actually not good enough. Liking each other is important, but trust, loyalty, and unconditional support are just as important." I slowly lifted my head, opened my mouth, but couldn't say a word. Chapter 10. On the day the verdict came out confirming that Chloe's false accusations had damaged my reputation, as well as that of my school and dance company, I secured an opportunity to study abroad. Everyone was congratulating me. She's really driven now. She used to need a push to get going, now she's self-motivated. Exactly. She didn't even plan on taking this spot at first. Good thing she changed her mind in the end. Don't let that constant smile fool you. When it's time to be ruthless, she really is. Just look at how she trained recently. If you want to be a principal dancer someday, going out now to learn more and exchange with the best is never a bad thing. If I were her, I'd be so dazzled by my future I wouldn't even be able to sleep. I pulled my suitcase along, a bright smile on my face. 2 years later, the plane landed smoothly and on time. And I had begun to make a name for myself in my professional career. The company director was often quoted in mainstream media saying, "Rising star. Unless something goes wrong, she'll be carrying the weight in the future." Of course, nothing could be allowed to go wrong. That was what I thought. The next time I heard news about Chad was one day while I was out eating, when I ran into one of his high school classmates. He recognized me immediately, probably from seeing me so often on social media. Chad. Chad isn't doing well now. I know about what happened between you. He really didn't do anything to betray you. He sounded displeased with my actions. If you love someone, shouldn't you accept their past? I didn't stop walking. I can accept that he has a past, but I can't accept that his past hasn't passed. He was slashed on the hand by Chloe's family's creditors. He can never step into an operating room again. It turned out Chloe's father had been buried in debt for a long time. A position that had originally been reserved for her at a certain institution was taken away once her family collapsed. She finally managed to get a teaching job at an expensive private school, only to ruin it herself. Later, after her father learned about Chloe and Chad, that desperate man went around telling creditors that Chad was his promising future son-in-law. When the creditors couldn't get their money, they went straight to Chad's hospital. Chad didn't take it seriously at first, and after seeing patients all morning, he was already in a bad mood. After a few heated words, the other party suddenly pulled out a knife. Chad's hand was cut. Now even holding a pen made it tremble. Let alone a scalpel. Because it was a personal dispute and caused negative impact for the hospital, it was said that once his contract expired, renewal would be unlikely. As for Chloe, her father had originally planned to use her marriage to buy a little more time. She refused, and by chance got involved with a rich heir. She ended up becoming someone's sixth mistress and got into a confrontation with the legal wife at a luxury boutique. She was slapped several times on the spot. The video could still be found online. It was said that the wife's family had considerable power, more than enough to deal with someone like Chloe. The day after that incident, Chloe's father was exposed for tax evasion through companies under his name and was taken away directly. And no one ever saw Chloe again. Some said they saw her go to the hospital looking for Chad, but the hospital told her that doctor no longer worked there. Half an hour before the new dance drama opened, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered, but the other side didn't speak. "Anna, that guy who's been chasing you bought out all the tickets for the upcoming shows. Go talk to him, tell him to wait until there's no audience before he books the whole place." Oh, okay. I responded absent-mindedly while trying to figure out the purpose of the call. But by the time I came back to my senses, the call had already ended. "Anna, it's your turn." "Got it." I glanced at my phone, tossed it casually into my bag, and ran toward the stage, bathed in spotlights. That was my future. Shining brightly.